Shawna and Jody here with Real Sisters, Real Talk.
We're glad to have you joining us as we talk about growing in our faith with God.
Hey, it's Real Sisters, Real Talk. I'm Shawna, that's Jody, and we are so glad that you are here. I'm telling you, we had a conversation last week about values, and I felt like we weren't quite done. Before I even dive into that, though, can I just say really quick, I am having so much fun doing this with you and the interaction that we have with one another and the comments and the reactions that we're getting from the people around us. It's just I'm excited about what God is doing. And if there's something that's on your heart and you're like, man, I wish Jody and Shawna would talk about this, you can let us know what that topic is. We have an account on Instagram, and you can also find us at jodyandshawna.com. And those are places that you can interact with us and let us know what you'd like us to dive into. We've definitely gotten some feedback, and that's really helpful for upcoming episodes that we can dive into the things that are interesting you.
Yeah. And the Instagram account is Real Sisters, Real Talk. Easy way to find us.
Okay, yeah, that's what it is. Real Sisters, Real Talk on Instagram and jodyandshawna.com. Okay, so Jodes, last week you cracked open the subject of values. And I know you've done a ton of more work on values than what I have, but this stuff, I geek out on this sort of thing because I really want to know me. And I think that is actually a peek into maybe what one of my values might be. The fact that I'm so, tell me what you know, tell me what you've learned, and and how can I learn about this more? And one of my 5 strengths in Strength Finders is learner, but I don't think that's what it is. When I went through the list and tried to really hone in on one of the things that helped me, because the list of values is very, very long, and I want to value all of them. And if you pick them
right, because they're all good.
Then you just don't know what your values are. It's not helpful. So anyway, in going through the list, I want to pick them all. But what helped me to kind of figure out maybe what some of my values are is to ask the question, well, would that nestle underneath another subject or not?
Yes.
And then that helped me to find the ones that were most important to rise to the top a little bit more. That makes sense?
Yes, I love that. And that's why it takes processing. It takes time for us to actually sit with it. Go ahead and write something down, but then you got to sit with it, right?
Yeah.
Because you had to figure out, oh, that falls under this category. Actually, my real value is this.
And if somebody didn't catch the last episode, then can you just really quickly tell us kind of a basic definition of values and maybe just a little bit of the difference between values and ideals?
Yeah. So a value is like our deeply held belief, the thing that we process out of, the thing we make decisions from. That's what our value is. And so basically, and we'll go through these questions a little bit more, even hopefully as we get a chance, but we kind of need to look at the filters of how do I spend my time? How do I spend my money? What things do I think about the most? Those are the things that show us what our values actually are. So the things that are your deeply held beliefs, the things that are part of the process when you have to make a decision or discern something, those are your values, the things that you hold the most important. Now, the ideals would be the things that you wish your values were. So your ideals might, honestly, some of those might be what you first put down as what your values are, because you wish you were living out of that. But when you actually apply those questions of how do I spend my time? How do I spend my money? What are the things that take up my brain space? What do I lay awake about thinking about at night? When we actually process through those filters, we realize these are not the values I'm living out of. Another way that I kind of explain it is, for me, the way that I've really been able to tell values is, if I have to make a decision, an important decision, what is the first thing that comes to mind? And so I shared in a previous podcast, when I finally realized that my family had become an idol, when I realized, when I was faced with a decision, my first filter was, how does this impact my family? And my second filter was, is this what God is inviting me into? And that's how I realized that I had created an idol, and I needed to get that in the proper perspective.
Yeah, because the first question was family, not God.
Right. Exactly. And so
Yeah.
when we look at like how we process a question, so really evaluate when you're discerning something, how do you process what is the right decision to make?
Hmm.
And that will show you what your true values are.
And that can be a really good thing, but that can also be an unhealthy thing. And let me just kind of unpack what I'm thinking when I say that. Like one of my values, I think, because I'm just learning, right? But as I step into this, I think one of my values is meaningful connection. Like it's super, super important to me to connect with you. And one of the ways that that surfaced for me, to be totally honest, this past week was um, I got really, really annoyed in a situation where somebody disagreed with me. And so they just turned me off.
Oh,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? They just like, I could
Yep.
see, it's almost like I could see physically the disconnect happen. And I was like, I just want to take back everything. Like, I want to suck it all back in time and have it not have happened because I can't handle the disconnect. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is
Even though
such a
what
high
you,
value.
right, even though that communication was maybe right and good, the value is that meaningful connection. And so
Right.
that value got broken.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think
That's good.
as I look back in my, my less healthy days of being me, there were a lot of times that I would not have conversations that needed to be had or not say the thing that needed to be said because I feared that it could impact connection. If the other person doesn't like hearing what I have to
Yeah.
say, the value of connection was actually higher than the value of loving that person and even
Oh,
sharing a good word or a hard word when it's needed because I feared that disconnection.
right. So that brings up this whole other really good point, Shauna, and just on this whole other path. But with every strength we have, with it, every um, you kind of mentioned strength finder. With every strength we have, there's a weakness that goes with it. So, like meaningful connection is a high value for you. It's something that you really want to stay connected with, or lean into.
Hmm.
And so the downside of that is you might sacrifice, being having an honest conversation or being, truthful with somebody because you don't want to break the connection. If we're like, responsibility, I want to be somebody who is responsible. I want to see my tasks through to the end. That's a strength, but the
Sure.
weakness side of that is I can take on other people's responsibilities because if they're not going to do it, then I'll do it.
Right.
And so there's there with every strength there's a weakness, so we literally have to be able to look at these things, kind of get our so another terminology they use a lot in Vantage Point 3 is sometimes we have to get ourselves up on the balcony because when we're
Mm,
on the dance floor, we have this perspective. They say the example they use is if I was on the dance floor and I spent the night on I was at at a wedding and I spent the night on the dance floor and somebody came and said, "Hey, how was the wedding?" And I'd go, "Oh my gosh, it was so much fun! Everybody was dancing and we had the best time." And then they went to somebody who was sitting on the balcony and they said, "How was the wedding?" And they said, "Oh, it was awesome. Probably a third of the people were dancing on the dance floor and everybody else was having good conversation. It was awesome." It's perspective.
mm.
And so sometimes we need to get up on the balcony so we can evaluate. And that's kind of what you just did this week as you kind of evaluated, "Oh, wait a second. I just realize
Yeah.
this compromise I'm making."
Yeah. Because we're talking
So,
about values, and because I'm thinking about values, when it showed up, I was like, why did that bother me so much? And I was like, I think it's because I have such a high value on meaningful connection. But another one for
right.
me that I've surfaced as I've been thinking about this since you brought it up and you're teaching me is kindness. And I didn't want that to be one because that seems kind of boring. Like I would rather have courage or something like that. But
I love that you just shared that because it's so true, right? We evaluate these things.
yeah, I think it's kind of vanilla and I'd rather be like, raspberry cheesecake kind of thing. But I do think that kindness is one of it just touches me deeply. And I'll just tell you, there's a couple of examples came to mind. And one is on a day when I was, and this might connect to the meaningful connections thing I was talking about too, but I had been in meetings during the day and I felt just completely overlooked. I had one of those situations where I was talking and then somebody began to speak over top of what I was saying, and it never circled back around. Nobody in the room ever said, Shawna, what were you saying? Like, and I just felt invisible. I felt like super, super tiny, like, Horton hears a who, like I was invisible
Yes.
and silent. And anyway, we went out to lunch, and when we arrived at the restaurant, there was somebody who had arrived before us, and they were entering the restaurant, and this gentleman opened up the door, and he turned around and he goes, and he like motioned like, go ahead. And I just like teared up because I was like, he sees me. I'm not invisible. This man like just saw me and opened the door and put me before himself and let me go first. So just such a small gesture. And I was like, I'm telling you about it now. And this was probably 6 or 7 years ago that this happened.
Oh
Another
my
moment.
goodness.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Yes.
kidding.
Yeah. I love that.
And then there was another moment, and it was just the tiniest little thing, but it was a church on a Sunday morning, and a friend of mine, her son, who's an adult, had come to church. He hadn't been in a while, and he was sitting right next to me in church, and communion was being served in our seats. And when the communion cups were passed, he took out a cup, and I put my hand out like for him to hand me the tray. And he took out a cup and he handed it to me. And I just broke. I cried, like I had to hold back the ugly cry because it wasn't like, oh, that was so thoughtful, tear, tear. I was like, that was so kind. Like that was the kindest thing. It was so,
You were moved.
yes. So I think that might be an indicator that just like simple gestures of kindness like that have like a deep impact in my heart. So maybe that's one of my values.
Yeah, I love that. I would even I love this kind of processing. I even wonder like even that meaningful connection along with these acts of kindness, the way that you respond by just that. I mean, honestly, to these people, to that gentleman opened the door, and to this young man that handed you the cup, it was such a small thing. They were seeing you,
Mm-hmm.
but what a gift that was. I even wonder if those kind of go a little bit together. I love that. That is beautiful.
I'm just kind of awakening to this right now at the moment, and you've done so much more research on this, so you've studied this and you know more than I do, but I'm just maybe thinking um both of these are connected to some pretty big emotions, both negative and positive. So the negative, missing connection, I don't like that. That showed up as a value, and then the the tears and the oh my goodness, that was so kind showed up for me. So is it something that we can that could be an indicator for us, like how we respond emotionally, that might point us to our values?
Oh, I don't, that's a good question. I wonder. I mean, I definitely think I would think, no expert on this. I would think, so just sharing my opinion here, there's an absolute emotional connection to what is driving us from the deepest part of our insides, right? And so
Mm.
there's an emotional response when that value is not respected, or we have not lived into that value. And there's probably an emotional response, when we do, or when we see that in somebody else, because it gives into that. So I would certainly think that would have some impact. Even I wonder if, like, just in thinking in line of the kindness, we talked last episode about a little bit about the giving a description to the word. So like I talked about, family, we can just put family as a value. But for me, time with my family is a value. I want to be present with them, and I want to spend time with them. And that's a high value. So in this kindness thing, I almost wonder, and it'd be fun to just kind of press into this with you, if it's more of an act of kindness, because kindness is kind of a general term.
Mm-hmm.
But for
Mm,
you, if
that's
it's an
good.
act of kindness, or is it a kindness in seeing you?
Yeah, that's it.
Right? So, but do you see the difference? Like, I could just say, just a general kindness
Right.
of, but this is it's specific, and so
Hmm.
it's really fun when you can really zero in on the very specifics of what it is that is a high value, and you're gonna sacrifice other things for this. I think that's an important thing to see too.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, thank you for challenging me on that because it is more specific than just kind, and maybe that feels a little less vanilla to me. It feels a little bit more maybe
There you
vanilla
go.
raspberry cheesecake-ish if you nuance it a little
There we
bit.
go.
And how many did you say, like, okay,
Yeah.
because I know you can't, like, every value can't be your core value or you just don't have any. How many is like the right amount for you to be able to live into and pay attention to?
Yeah, I would say no more than 5
Okay,
because
good. Because
and
I have 5.
yeah. Do you really? Good
Yeah,
work,
I
sister.
literally do. Well, so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are other things that are, do hold value to us. They are part of our filter, and they might kind of shift a little bit, but the truth is, when we're making a decision, we're not filtering it through 12 things. Like, we're
Right.
pretty much filtering it through the top things, and then we're kind of coming to a decision, and we might support it with other values, like, oh, because of this and because of that. But the truth is, we're filtering through a few, and so I think no more than 5
That's good.
would be a fair number to have.
All right, you wanna help me process some of my
Yeah.
others?
Yeah, I want love to.
Okay. So, definitely, and these are not in order, so I'm not saying that Jesus is 3rd, but one of mine would be faith.
Yeah. Yep.
And, in the pushback that you gave about, like, being even a little bit more specific, I think for me, it is the security of my relationship with Jesus. Like, there's something there
Oh,
about knowing that I'm safe. So, does that make sense?
it does, and you know what? Just as your sister, I'm gonna tell you, I so agree with you because
Mm.
there's such an intimacy you have such an intimacy in your relationship with Jesus that I absolutely would 100% agree with that, kinda zeroing in on it.
Yeah, and what it looks like for me is like when I'm with the Lord, like that's my happy place. Like, oh, I'm good here. Like I'm with my Jesus. I'm going to sit on this couch. I'm going to open up the word. I'm going to read. I'm going to pray. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to get really vulnerable. I'm going to get honest and I'm going to say the things here that I don't say in other places because I know I'm safe with you. I know I'm safe
Yes.
here.
Yep, and you have a meaningful connection, and you can say whatever, and
Yes.
that's not going to be broken.
Right. Right? Oh, that
Isn't
was
that
good. That was a
beautiful?
good connect there, Joe. That was really good.
Thanks. Woohoo. This
Yeah.
is fun stuff. This is the
I
stuff I love.
I know. Okay, so this connects to another one of mine, which is I'm gonna make one up. Can I do that? Can I
Oh
go
yeah,
rogue?
yeah. The list I had sent Shauna, just so you all know, I had sent Shauna a list of like potential values. There is no list. Like, legit. This is your life, and so we get to just lean into what our values are. But anyway, yes, please.
Yeah, so as I'm looking through the list, I'm seeing things like learner and growth and even inner growth. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's it. It's inner growth. And then I kind of made up the word, my own word. I mean, it's not a word I'm making up, but anyway, I came up with the value of becoming. And so it's not just like I don't
Oh.
want to just know the stuff that I need to know. Like my whole purpose of getting into God's word and reading God's word is not so that I have more Bible knowledge. It's so that I could be different. I want to be transformed. I want to be changed. And so the value is becoming. I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to stop. I want to be becoming.
Yeah, you are in the process. I love that. And I actually love the word you chose too, because it's not doing, it's becoming.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a
And
little
that's so
fun
important.
I think there's a little fun play on words with that word too. I think it's been a word that's been interesting to me for some time because when someone is attractive, we might say she's very becoming. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing to be becoming, and it's not about outside appearance. It's not about what we look like. It's this becoming like Jesus is like a beautiful work, if you will.
Yeah. I would say it's not even about striving.
Right.
It's about entering into relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, these all make sense together. Not before I talked to you, but now they do.
Yeah.
This is
But
so fun.
okay, but isn't this the perfect example of we can do this work on our own but when we start processing it together, we get clarity and it becomes more refined and that makes it that much more fun to lean into
Yeah,
as we're growing and walking in relationship with the Lord.
that's
So
such a
that's
good word.
that's the beauty of this.
That is such a good word. So when as we
Yeah.
were having this conversation about values, man, if we're having any conversation, like if you're learning from the conversation, if you're being blessed from the conversation, who else can you pull in to talk about these things with? Because that's the secret sauce. Like that's the good stuff. Is that we get to, I'm going to go a little bit deep. We get to do it together. So Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, community existed long before ever you did or I did. And it's always been God's perfect plan that we would live in community. So, yeah, just what a great word, Jody, to just reach out to people who know you well, people that you love, and have these conversations together with them. So, the last one on my list of 5, Jodes, is I think this is one of mine, and it's peace. So this morning we interviewed I'm a morning show host, and on the show this morning interviewed a gentleman from Israel. And I did his bio and I greeted him and I said, good morning, Dr. Soref. And he said, good morning, shalom. And
Oh,
I was, yes, right. That was my reaction to you. I was like, oh, shalom. Yes, I received that. And shalom, if you're not familiar with that term, just means like everything as it should be. I mean, it's really like shalom kind of encompasses the Garden of Eden before the fall when we were walking in relationship, perfect relationship with God. And anyway, so yeah, that was another one of those emotional kind of moments for me when I'm doing my job and I'm trying to be professional and interview this man from Israel, and he says shalom, and I just got all marshmallowy inside. I was like, oh,
and
yes,
you're
shalom.
undone.
Yes, shalom to you too.
I
Yeah,
love that. Shawna, I love the work you have done on this. And this, when we start to really like process this out and apply it as we walk in the week and as we engage in relationship and all of that kind of stuff, this is where we actually begin the growing part of this, kind of really leaning into um, who God created us to be, really, and
yeah.
the things that are the values that are ours.
Yeah. This is so good.
So,
Jody, thank you for bringing this up. Thanks for processing with me and helping me to learn like you always do. What a good big sister you are.
oh, well, thanks. And I learned so much from you. We get to learn and grow together, and that is such a gift.
Yeah. We're so glad that you're here. This is fun. This is really fun to be on the journey together with you. So thanks for hanging out with us and diving into this conversation on values. And as always, we want you to know as you leave this place, as you go through your day, we serve a real God and he really does love you.